Welcome to the Learning Curve. Today, Sanjay Srivastava, CEO of Vocarium, is joined by Sesh Murthy from UC San Diego for a conversation about AI in education and how it can support learners in more thoughtful, effective, and meaningful ways.
Thanks, Sesh, for joining this podcast. As you know, this is the very first one. So I'm just hoping to learn a few things, have some fun. So I just wanted to go ahead and get started by asking you to give some context, describe your professional journey and, how you are where you are. And then, of course, we'll have a lot of fun talking about where you are right now.
Yeah, so big question. So I'll try to keep a short answer and we can explore. I was working with inner city kids, tutoring them at Yonkers Partners for Education. And so you learn a lot by working with students. And then the question always was, so I've got a long history with AI. So I was wondering, how do we use AI to do some of this? And when ChatGPT came out, it turned out that I had been recruited to work at Western Governors University. And my boss at that time, Ashutosh Tiwari, and I sat down for dinner one day. And actually, there were a bunch of us. We said, God, this is going to make the thing so much simpler to do. And so from the content creation process to the grading process to diagnosing what the students know and did not. And we didn't know what was possible, but we thought it would improve things. So we started that project that day. So I started it at Western Governors and I continued this at UCSD. It's been a great journey trying to see how you can use AI to help improve student outcomes. One of the key things I have been interested in particular is how to prevent AI from making student learning worse.
That's a good starting point.
Yes. So what can cause problems? And so, that's what we're doing. And so I've had the good fortune at UCSD to work with an extremely strong set of faculty across cognitive science, data science, AI, the education department, and most importantly, the math department has been extraordinarily generous with their time, right from the head of the department, Michael Holst, all the way down to all of the individual faculty who spent far more time than one can believe. So been very lucky that we got them. So other instructors in other courses, like in programming, in a course for the GPS school here, have also contributed. So we got a very wide set of people who worked with us. So that's my journey. That's what we've done.
That was interesting. You mentioned that you had an experience with the tutoring inner city kids. And so can you sort of connect the dots in some sense, like that experience and looking for exploring AI? Is there a dot to be connected?
Yeah, there is a dot to be connected. So there is this paper by Bloom, which talks about one-on-one tutoring. And I find that every time I read it, I learn some more about it. There are some papers like, some of Simon and Newell's papers in AI that are that way for me. So I go back and look at that. And it says that the outcome for students who have one-on-one tutoring is 2 sigma better than students who are in a general classroom. I'm paraphrasing. Ever since then, right, intelligent tutoring systems and the people have been trying to figure out how to provide the 2 sigma effect without actually having one-on-one tutor. So I saw the value of the one-on-one tutoring when I was working with students. You instantly figure out what they don't know. You don't have to make them go through like hundreds of questions, right? One question did reasonably difficult and you have an estimate of where they're sitting, right? That's what we set out. We wanted to create. A lot of people believe that AI, if used correctly, can improve student learning. And most of them believe that the best way to go about it is to learn the mechanisms that a tutor uses in a one-on-one tutoring, a human uses in one-on-one tutoring. And so I've been going back to my experience with tutoring kids. And of course, all the faculty here have lots of experience with that. So I think that's the link.
I was going to say, so what do you think? I mean, at this point, we've been working together for 2 years. What has this project been like and what have you discovered? So do you want to talk through the specific aspire?
So there's one important thing that I want to point out that I have watched other such projects flounder on, which is that they tried to build everything on their own, right? So the reason that I chose to use Vocarium as the platform on which we built the AI capabilities was that about 90% of what we required in terms of the user interface, the connectivity to backend systems like Canvas and being able to ingest materials from there, the FERPA regulations that you need to comply with, all these already existed, right? And so we were able to get started on day one with the key problem that we wanted to solve, which was which workflows are likely to succeed. Everybody says that they use evidence-based workflows, right, from learning science. And these are pretty well known. The best papers are out there. Everybody can take a look at them. The difficulty in the past, right, was that you built out these workflows and they were extremely brittle, right? So the combination of using the Vocarium platform and then having these extremely powerful LLMs at the back end, right, enabled us to build out these workflows like personalized mastery-based learning, right, extremely quickly, right? So we had the literature on intelligent tutoring systems says that you need to have a domain model and you need to have a student model. And it was far easier to build this out with a Vocarium than to do this independently in some other place. And we did that with you. Once a student model is available and then you're able to improve your approximation of, so the student model, the ITS people call it the student model, right? But everybody else calls it a digital twin, which is the AI tutor's estimate of what the student knows at any given time on each concept, right? There are a few more things that you have in digital twin, and we're improving that. And just what they know, the level of mastery is not just a scalar that goes from 0 to 10. We think that there is more to it to learn from. But anyway, going off topic. So having that domain model built quickly, having the student model about what each student knows, and then being able to connect up with the existing courses, for example, in Math B, we were able to do this in weeks rather than in years. Then we were able to iterate quickly. We learned a few things, which is that if you just put a tutoring system out there and say, go use it, hardly anybody uses it. And we can touch more on that if you want to.
Yeah, I remember you saying that the whole 5% problem, and that was pretty eye-opening. And why don't you just talk about it? I have mentioned to other people and send the reference, and everybody definitely hits very close to home, right? Because you see it articulated that way is pretty amazing. But go ahead,
Yeah. This is a really good paper, and I will provide the link later, which talks about the 5% problem, which is that the same 5% of students who would go out of the way to do anything required to succeed are the ones who use the tutoring systems. And as a result, grades improve, but the remaining 95% of them who are not, who are, for whatever reason, right, don't get around to use it. Maybe they don't know how simple it is. Maybe they don't know what value it provides, etc. And this has been a problem that has been plaguing ITSs and the AI in education in general, right? So this has been a problem. We were lucky that we had strong faculty members who understood the issue. And Professor Ko-Om, who is now a faculty member at Berkeley, suggested that the way we could try and solve this problem of not enough people using the AI tutor was to give them extra homework that was due on Monday. Just for context, right? The materials are taught during week 0. Then week 1, they have to submit a homework on that, right? And in previous courses, they had a homework that was due on Wednesday. So Ko suggested that we add another homework that was due on Monday. And this was where they could use AI help to get started. That's where we first saw the 5% problem going away. Some students chose not to use AI. We set it up that way so that they could submit their homework without AI. We agree that if you can get started on the problem, work on it, go through the productive struggle, then you will learn it far better than if you depend on a crutch. Some percentage of students did not use the AI at all, and they tended to be people who knew the material already or worked harder, so on and so forth. But a significant percentage of the students, some 60+% of the students used the AI, and it was instructive to use to see how they were using it. Many of them started the homework at 8 or later on Sunday for a Monday submission. Why am I mentioning this? This is usually a recipe for disaster, right? You can get very bad grades on it. But the AI provided the scaffolding so that the students could get started. It takes away one excuse for not getting started, right? This is our theory anyway. So it provides enough of an incentive for the students to get started on that homework. And the interesting thing is that they all got 100 on their homeworks. And if you go back and take a look at transcripts, you will see that the AI has not given the answer away. It has scaffolded them enough so that they move further enough that they solve the problem. So they do go through the productive struggle. So that Monday homework, which the students had to do, provided the first instance where they relearned the material after the class, submitted the homework, and then they were able to then gain some confidence that they knew the material. On Wednesday, they had a homework which they could not use AI for, that had to be just written on hand and paper and uploaded. We haven't got the evidence back about whether they improved on that, though anecdotal evidence says that they did do better. And then we had a quiz on Friday, a proctored quiz where they could not use AI. But they had seen this material 3 times already, right? In the lecture, then on Sunday night, probably at midnight, where they were submitting their homework, and then doing stuff on Wednesday. So they tended to do reasonably well. And then they were able to use the AI for doing practice tests before the midterms and the finals. And because they had used it through the course, they saw the value, and a significant percentage of them used it. So that 5% problem went away. And I would think that they do say in that paper on the 5% problem that you have to redesign the course to do it. But this is a concrete instance of how we redesigned the course to get past that 5% problems. And that's probably the reason why we were able to get significant results.
Yeah, so that's not exciting. It's redesigned, but it's not disruptive, right? You're just adding another homework and saying, okay, you can use AI. It can be incorporated, it feels like relatively painlessly, right?
Yeah. I credit that to two things. One is the LLMs have got damn good, right? And we're using them at the back end. And the other one is the Vocarium platform, right? And that you guys made it extremely simple for the students to submit the homework, right? Otherwise, the equation editor is not working. I don't know how to do this, and that becomes a problem. This is like when I don't want to go to the gym, I say that, well, I can't find my clothes, I'm not going to the gym. That's the kind of excuse that I make. So now I know how to get past that problem. So we're trying to get past that exact same issue with the students, just get everything that could stop them out of the way so that they attempt to solve the problem, provide the help necessary, scaffolding, and then help them to go forward.
So one thing which you mentioned, I just want to drill down. So you said on Wednesday, it gave them the confidence that, they had seen the problem and they had gotten 100% with AI help, right? So that confidence you believe was maybe significant. Maybe they're engaging more because of the confidence. You think it was a significant contributor to the improved outcomes?
Yeah, we're now getting into third level effects, right? Let me put the disclaimer up front. We have got this wealth of data that we have gathered in spring 24, fall 25, now in winter 26. And there's a lot of stuff to take a look at there. All that data will show me correlations and it will not show me causation. We understand that. But even then, I'm going to speculate on the... So with that thing, I'm going to speculate now. I think that confidence, and now I'm going back to my work with one-on-one tutoring with students. I think that practice makes perfect. And the more you do it, it doesn't matter what anybody else tells you. It is the results of what you did that you are able to then use to build the confidence. So I think that actually is a critical part of it. And overall, we have reasonably strong evidence that students who use the AI tutor for answering more questions, for attempting and answering more questions. So they didn't have to use it just for the homework, right? They could say, give me another question like this and solve that. They could, at the homework time for the midterm and the finals, they had practice questions and they could attempt that and they could ask for extra questions. So there's a pretty strong correlation between students' attempt of more questions and their outcome on the course. In fact, it is, and we have to check this, but we believe that it is better correlated with the outcome than their incoming knowledge level.
That is amazing. That's astounding, right? Because you always believed that the biggest indicator was, right? I mean, where do you start, right? That's
where you start, right? So this is really interesting, Sanjay. So as we progress quarter by quarter, we recognized in the summer of 25 that one of the things that we need to do is to test the students coming in to understand their knowledge level and then to give them guidance on what their mastery level is of various concepts. Remember the student model that we're talking about. And so we provided that. But that was then a body of evidence that showed us where across these 250 odd students, they came in for each concept that was being taught and tested, right? And then we were able to look at the progress across the first midterm, second midterm, and the final midterm for students who attempted more questions versus students who attempted less questions. And it is very clear that the students who attempted more questions, their progress on the concepts was higher for midterm, the finals. And we found that how much they knew when they came in was a very strong indicator of how they did the course. But the number of questions they attempted was even stronger.
That's amazing.
It's not statistically significant. I mean, it is probably of the same order of magnitude, but that itself is remarkable, isn't it, Sanjay?
Right. Yeah, that's insane. So in terms of the data, anything else before we move on? So I realized that some of it is just correlation, as you said. So we need to do more research. Just from a data perspective, the Harvard study talk about like a 1 sigma difference, like if you have a well-designed tutor, right? So that was pretty exciting that more and more people are beginning to come to the same conclusion that a well-designed AI intervention, in my mind, like there is no doubt left that it makes an impact, right? Do you agree?
Yeah. So let's address that Harvard study.
Yeah.
I'm going to paraphrase it and probably get parts of it wrong, but there were two concepts that students alternated. So half the class got AI assistance on the concept and half got a personalized tutoring with the person. And what was interesting was that the people who got the AI assistance actually did better than the people who got the personalized tutoring assistance. And they swapped it in the second concept. So they got rid of this issue with, we were talking about fairness. And so that was a well-designed study. That was the first instance saw that there was evidence that AI could help to improve the student outcome. You know, we can always say that it helps to make the teacher learn something faster. We can say that the students liked it in the end of a quarter quiz. But what we have been able to replicate with your help here is that for this course 3B, right, we were able to reduce the failure rate in this gateway math course by a significant number of the order of 2/3. We're not allocate all of that to the math tutor, to the tutor alone. A significant portion of it was the course redesign to have the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but that was possible because the AI tutor was there, right? So you can't take those two apart. We think that the significant portion of it was the instant feedback that the system is able to give. If you provide an answer that's wrong, there's incredible value in knowing immediately that it's wrong. You know, I both program, right? When I had to take a card deck and then feed that into the system and then I could only run it once a day, debugging that program was a little difficult.
And what if you drop the card stack in, the
oh my God. Don't even go there, man. No, you shuffled it. Yeah, right. In programming, we all accepted that you get instant feedback on whether your program will run or not, right? And that was not there in math. And now we have that with the help of Vocarium, right? To put that there. We think that was a critical part of it. We think that the scaffolding that we provide, I think is really a critical part of it. But net, I think that Harvard study that you referenced and this work that we have, I feel confident that a well-designed AI system, right, that preserves productive struggle, I think that's really important, is going to help improve student outcomes. So it has to be well-designed. And the well-designed is part of the research that you and I are conducting jointly, right, with UCSD and now several other universities. Right.
And as I was saying before, and I actually get excited about it in a couple of things here, right? Number one is that we are targeting, it was from day one, the goal. Let's go see how we can reduce failure rate, right? How can we go out there, really solve a real meaningful problem in our education system that students coming in, they might, math proficiency could really derail their career, right? So the second thing you're talking about, well-designed, I totally believe that gets me excited also, that certainly it's not something which will sit on the side, but it can be integrated in the current architecture of how we teach, right? So that is important. Otherwise, we'll be writing a research paper and waiting forever for the new system to emerge, the new whole schooling system, and we'll all be dead by then. So,
And let's look at both other things, right? And that you said, they're really interesting. So I'm really lucky that I met you and that you share the same goal of trying to improve the outcomes for the students. So for whatever reason, right, the students come in, either they don't know the prerequisites or they're not confident that they know the prerequisites. They are equally damaging, both of them. Right. They might know it, but they're not confident, and so they perform badly.
That's a good point.
So it was always my thesis that with one-on-one tutoring, you could fix the problem, right? But that doesn't scale, right? That's the problem. If you're talking of thousands of students, then you need a lot of time. I actually don't understand why society cannot devote that time, but let's leave that alone for the time being. Because that's a discussion for another day. I think society should devote that time. But in the absence of the societal will to provide those resources. I think that this, what we have jointly come up with, right? And the entire mass of researchers who are working on using an AI in education, right? There are some significant results that show that you can use AI designed correctly to improve the student outcomes, right? And in a world where people keep talking about all the bad things that can happen, I think we have focused on one good thing that AI can do and how it can do it.
Right. And I, do worry that we're just not prepared for it as a society only because we don't get good news like this. I mean, the last time the education system, I think, changed, someone figured out in the Industrial Revolution that we can put lots of students in a class and teach them the same thing so they can come out, right? But if you think about it, nothing really has changed since then, right? So we haven't had the pressure to say, there is this like really meaningful outcome, let's go incorporate it in the classroom. So it'll be pretty fascinating to see, what happens this time, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm really excited. I mean, so all the college and the high school teachers
right.
are really excited about this, right? I think it's going to take, the AI is going to evolve.
Mhm.
And the right decision we made is not to try to create an LLM on our own, right? Could have gone down that path and spent 7 years trying to get up to speed. So we're using the off-the-shelf LLMs, which are then progressing correctly. And then our research is progressing and we're able to put this together. So the faculty, both in schools and colleges, are quite excited about this. And the question is, what can we do next? It's an infinite frontier. And if we're able to overcome disadvantages that occur because of poorly resourced schools or lack of resources that are there at home or whatever it is, right? And get people to the same level. That thing which I talked about, which is that the level you came up with is about at the same correlation with the outcome as a number of practice attempts, right? That is quite powerful.
Maybe that's amazing. You have a shot, right?
Yeah?
You have a shot. You don't have to give up just because you're starting, a little behind.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Very concrete way to, level the playing field. That's amazing.
Yeah, when we saw that, Sanjay, the first thing that we did was we recorded a short video that said that, look, our evidence shows that if you practice more, you do better. Practice before your midterm and your final.
Yeah, and here's the evidence, right? Like there's something really concrete you can do. That's amazing, right?
I think that we are focused in the Aspire project at UCSD on STEM. And I personally don't know whether AI will help or worsen outcomes for students in the humanities and another areas. So I don't know.
Yeah, and it's a well-designed, at least my personal opinion, and I'm just quoting a very small anecdote, right, where I thought that, it's just a marvelous experience. But going back to the whole well-designed part, like I don't know what that would mean. Hopefully other people have experimented with it, but, you can sort of see the power, right?
I think that I mentioned that if I have to do a task, the students, right, they were doing stuff at 10, 11 o'clock, but they were getting the 100. That is true across the board, right? So if I'm trying to learn a Gita shloka, right? I mean, I could go back and say that, well, I never learned Sanskrit properly when I was in school. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. Or I can say there's a wealth of resources available. I can get started and then go forward. And so, the AI has been extraordinarily helpful out there. So essentially, I'm excited about all the things that I wanted to do that I felt that I would not have the time to do.
Right.
So this is not just for other students. I'm using this in my work, actually, whether it is, if I don't know a subject, I can quickly reading a paper, you have to go through a productive struggle to understand what it is. It can be done an order of magnitude faster. I hope I'm learning as much.
Yeah.
It's always that worry, right?
No, that's totally true. But I'm certainly doing a lot more. I mean, I do worry about that too, because I'm doing a lot more. I'm not learning as much. But the other flip side is just the whole excuse thing you're saying. I would not be either learning or doing without the tool.
Yeah.
So I still think net is positive.
Yeah, this is the equivalent of my packing my gym clothes the night before, right? So that I don't have an excuse in the morning. That's the exact same thing here. That AI takes that excuse away, that, it's not going to be too difficult to get started.
So Sesh, has been a lot of fun. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
I am really excited about what we can do in STEM. I think that for too many years have let the people who didn't have the requisite knowledge, we have let them, we said that they could not succeed and go forward. I think that we have a chance now to open up STEM careers for everybody it doesn't have to be somebody who is doing topology at a PhD level, right? You need to do many carpentry tasks. You need to be able to add, subtract fractions and do things like that. That might be where somebody is getting blocked in getting into the trades and doing it. I think that we could help there. So somebody, for example, coming out from the military, right, and who wants to get into a vocation, we could figure out quickly what they don't know, teach that to them exactly, and then go forward. So I'm really excited about what we can do with this.
Absolutely. And I absolutely share the excitement. Thank you, Sesh.
Thank you.